got our 5 biggest disappointments of the season. Now, this one is a little bit more open to different things. It could be a driver, could be a team, could be a race, could be anything. So I'll hand it straight back over to you, Logan. What are your 5 biggest disappointments of the 2025 season?
Number 1, Hamilton. Absolutely destroyed on track and mentally. Everyone thought that everyone has him on this pedestal for some reason. And this year showed exactly where he's at for real. He can't just rock up and beat anybody in any equipment. He never could, never has, never will. People hold him as like the best ever for some reason, which I don't get. He got destroyed by Leclerc and Hamilton racing in traffic. Bottom 5 on the grid.
Ouch.
Taking him after his incidents or not, he doesn't make his way through like other people do. So yeah, he's the biggest disappointment of the year. Completely outclassed. Could not handle the new team. Could not handle being in a top car. Number 2 is Alpine. Bottom of constructors. Didn't really seem to care. Maybe they're just building for next year, but that's a big disappointment. Number 3 is the Red Bull second seat. I know it's Max Verstappen. I know the car is not easiest to drive. Man, with the exception of Perez and Ricciardo, that second Red Bull seat just eats alive whoever's there. Number 4, I'm going to go to Sainz. Almost the same thing as Hamilton.
That's harsh.
And he did have some good races. It's not like he had an awful year, but people put him on this podium that he's a top-tier driver and blah, blah, blah. And he got beat at Albon, by Albon, who I don't think anyone was rating as like, that's a top 5 guy on the grid, you know. So I would say that's number 4. Number 5 to me, okay, I thought it was tough, then I remembered Ferrari. They're still strategically inept, and the car it only seemed to get worse over the course of the year.
That was number 5, wasn't it? I was just keeping track there. So that was Hamilton first. Was that
Alpine second.
That was it. Alpine second, Sonoda third, and then just that whole
general
thing. Yeah, and then 5th was Ferrari. What was 4th again? Sainz. That was it. Of course. How could I forget? Well, I think the Sainz one's very harsh. I think Sainz is harsh. I think Ferrari, I think that could be a little bit higher, maybe. Alpine, I agree with. I agree with the Red Bull thing. Yeah.
People had him on that pedestal. That's what. But like perception versus result. Like, yeah, he had good races. I'm not saying he had a bad year, but I'm saying like people thought like, wow, Sainz is just gonna walk into Williams and run the damn show.
He might be running it now though. Going into next year, he might be. I think they are pretty equal though. I think it's a good lineup. The pair that they have at Williams. No races or other kind of factors coming to mind that were a disappointment this year? Nothing else that kind of rings a bell?
To me, my disappointment isn't really in this year. Like I talked about earlier, it goes back to when they made those rule changes. I feel like these cars had the potential to have good racing for a very long time. But because they took away the ground effect and just let it go to the top aerodynamic parts again, of course it was going to turn into a dirty air fest. The racing in 2022 was spectacular. And we're like, you know what? That's great. Let's just go back to what it was before. I don't know. I am so confused by the existence of the FIA. If I had to give a number 6, I would give it to the FIA. Just because their stewarding is so inconsistent that people can watch sport, see it from 50 camera angles and still be like, I don't know what's going on here. You know, like the fact that things are so iffy and situational, it's like things can be way more cut and dry with how you race and what the rules are, but it just seems so subjective all the time.
No, I totally get what you mean. Right, my 5 biggest disappointments are, coming in at number 1, I have Ferrari. Now, I say Ferrari because this was a team that almost won the Constructors' Championship last season, and this season they couldn't even win a damn race. And that is the first time that's happened, I think, since 2020, and then obviously 2016, those 2 seasons in the last 10, that's happened. But they were so bad at certain races, and it was, for me, only kind of Leclerc dragging something out of that car. And all because they weren't satisfied with the philosophy of the car last year. They believed they couldn't upgrade it anymore, so they decided to rip that up and change it all, and they only went backwards, which I just think is an unforgivable mistake.
I
So
like it. I
you
like
like
the
it?
mindset.
Yeah.
I like the mind. This is good, but it's not the best. And if we want to be the best, we got to go for something new. I
Mm.
at least respect that philosophy. It didn't work out, but if they would have kept with what they were doing, they knew they weren't going to win either. So either take the path you know is a losing path or risk going down with the chances of going up. I think that's a good way to go about an F1 team. You're not there to be third, fourth, especially when you're Ferrari and you're already there. You got to make that push for the next step. And they had to change something. Didn't
Yeah.
work, but I at least respect them for trying. They didn't just get complacent and sit there, you know.
Yeah, that's
My
true.
favorite story is how they view themselves. They come off as very cocky and closed off, but it's like they know they have what it takes, or they think they know that they have what it takes to be the best, and they want to be the best, and they're not happy with second. You need that mentality.
Yeah, you could say Mercedes are in a similar kind of way of thinking, if you like. But I just feel, considering this was the year where there was going to be hardly any development of the car anyway, and I think Ferrari did check out of all development on this car since April, which is a crazy thing to say. I think that was maybe for me where I'm like, I totally get what you mean, but was it worth doing that if you're not going to develop it much anyway? I'm not too sure. They'll be hoping, they'll be fingers crossed that next year they can get back to the front, because if they're not, then it really is starting to get pretty bleak at that team, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think the idea was they go for this, and then if it doesn't work early and they're not fighting for it, then they alter to 2026.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what I
true.
mean? If they stayed where they were, then they would know they can't win constructors or drivers by April, and they start developing the next car. This one, they at least take a shot at being up there early on. Okay, it
Yeah.
didn't work out. We move on anyhow. They don't really lose that much. I mean, yeah, they lose the money from constructors, but like, did they need it?
Mm.
They're good.
Yeah, they put, all their eggs in one basket in some sense of like they were all in on this year in terms of the initial car design, and if that didn't work, then they were checking out. I think the damage that has maybe caused to Hamilton and Leclerc's kind of minds, I'm not too sure if that was worth it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is for Ferrari, and they are well and truly focusing now on next year. In second, I've got Lewis Hamilton. I think he had his worst season in his F1 career by a margin. I think last year wasn't too great from Lewis, but at least he had some wins to show for. This year, to not even have a podium is just not acceptable from a 7-time world champion. It's giving me vibes of when Michael Schumacher, to this day, by the way, in 2009, on this day, he rejoined Mercedes for the 2010 season, and he stayed for a couple more after that. It's giving me Schumacher Mercedes vibes, where you once had it, but you haven't got it anymore. And Hamilton's joined Ferrari. For me, I called this in the season preview podcast. It wasn't the right decision to make. I didn't think Ferrari would be a team that would suit Lewis. And that's proven to be because of so many different factors, whether it's the language, whether it's Leclerc's team already, whether it's, just a different philosophy of, the way they go about things. Ferrari have always had good drivers over the years. It's never been the drivers that have denied them winning championships. It's always the car. If the car's not there, you're not going to be able to drag that team into winning a championship. Schumacher went to Ferrari in the 90s, and it took him a good few years to get that team perfect to how he wanted it. And that still took the likes of Rosberg, Jean Todt, and so on, all in the background to make things click. I don't see that with Ferrari at the minute. And for Hamilton, it was a disaster, really, to put it straight. That sprint victory, in some ways, almost made this worse for him because it gave a false perception that it was working when it absolutely wasn't. So Hamilton is in second. This one might be quite harsh, but I've got Yuki Tsunoda in third. Just him. I just think he's just had a really bad season, and I know that second Red Bull car is clearly not the same as the first, but I just think like Tsunoda was just also not on it. He's not done himself many favors. Even in Abu Dhabi, when he kind of was weaving in front of Norris and didn't really do a good job of holding him up anyway, I just thought like, yeah, you've not been on it. So that's why I've got Tsunoda in third. I've then got Jack Doohan in fourth, because you know what, Logan, he was only here for 2 races, something like that, and he was so bad. He was so bad for every single race, qualifying session. I mean, that Suzuka track, he's done a Super Formula test recently, and he crashed at Daytona 1, I think, 3 days in a row, or 4 days in a row even, when testing. And that track, he just seems to be cursed there because he had a shocker in qualifying or practice when he binned that car at the first corner. And I just think Jack Doohan should never been in that seat from the get-go. And then in fifth, I've got Esteban Ocon. I think Ocon has actually had a pretty bad season. He started off all right, had a good result in China, but then really got outclassed by Behrman in the second half of the year. And considering Ollie's in his first full season in F1, when Ocon is arguably should be almost at the peak of his powers, that was actually slightly embarrassing for him to get beaten how he has by Behrman, and he should have been the outright leader of that team. So I think it's been a pretty bad year for Esteban. So he comes in at number 5. What do you think of that list, Logan?
Pretty good list. I like it. Different takes, different people, different reasons.
Yes.
Pretty
Perfect.
respectful.
There we are.